All right, Shalom. For the phone, we give our praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Harakah, Kodash, Barakatham. Double honor to the apostle, elder, the great millstone, to our rock across the globe, pushing the word of truth in the city. Want to say Shalom. I'm in my room. You may hear some outside noise. People might be coming by. So just please forgive me. All right. It's kind of not kind of. It's cold outside right now at the moment. So take a little time to I talk about perception. You know, it's very important to have discernment in this truth. And how we interpret and how we receive things. All right. Um, in this truth. You know, when it comes to the brothers, when it comes to your character defects and flaws, and and ultimately how we perceive situations. All right. So I'm gonna give the definition, and Lord willing, lesson edifying a little more. But if we have time, maybe I'll do a part two. Or right now, it says perception is the process of organizing and interpreting sensory information, sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste, to understand the environment, transforming raw data into meaningful experiences. To access a mental awareness or viewpoint, often influenced by personal beliefs and context such as public perception. There was another one I wanted to get here. It says, in the context, perception is not just what we see, but how we interpret it based on expectations and personal experience. And I brought that out because it comes down to, for me, it comes down to conduct, and it comes down to how I view things. All right, and one of the things that one of the synonyms I looked it up earlier, it talked about having discernment and acumen. All right, and the Lord has given us a level of discernment, a spiritual gift to understand certain things. That the spiritual man judge up all things. And how we conduct ourselves is very and our brothers perceive us. All right, is very important. How we perceive brothers is very important, because how we perceive brothers, how we treat brothers. How you perceive this truth to be is how you're going to treat the truth. So I want to make this lesson because the word perception has been on my mind for many, many moons, for a few weeks now, and it's been used describing me, giving me insight about how I interpret this truth from brothers at times, and it's all about how we view uh, uh, these situations that we're in, but also how brothers perceive us, and how all brothers, but particularly older brothers, are conducting themselves. So 1 Corinthians 5:22 says, abstain from all appearances of evil. The scriptures talk about do no secret thing in front of a stranger. So we have to avoid, excuse me. Should I get? I have to avoid. We have to avoid from walking disorderly, walking with murmuring. All right, speaking out. And being cognitively aware. All right, of the ministry. All right, of Yahweh Shai Shai, and being ambassadors. All right, so we gotta make sure that we walk ourselves in a orderly, a brotherly manner, or a righteous manner. All right, amongst those who are without. And um, we're being watched. Not only is the angels watching, the Lord is watching, but brothers are also watching. So conduct, all right, and the perception you give off to brothers is very vital. All right, that's why we got to examine ourselves. That's why I must examine myself every day, all right, to look in the mirror and see, am I leaving a stain, all right, on Yahweh Shai outside name by my conduct. All right, so let's continue with 2 Corinthians 10:7. It says, Do you look on things after the outward appearance? If any man trust to himself that he is Messiah, let him of himself think this again, that as he is Messiah, even so are we Messiah. And brothers move different. Brothers think different. Brothers' experiences in this truth vary. All right, and we have to consider these things when we're judging, when we're speaking about our gripes, when we're speaking, um, uh, when we're venting, all right, when we're trying to edify and build up. We have to be aware of the words we use, the tone at times. All right, because these men don't belong to me. They don't belong to you. They belong to the Lord. All right, and if the Lord calls them, it said, even if they are Messiah, so are we. So we believe that man will be a man of the Lord. All right, and the Lord is dealing with him, brother, in good standings. We have to be cognizant, all right, of how we judge and how we view brothers. All right, everybody's not going to be all on one accord, as far as how they move, how they dress, how they react to certain situations. All right, and it goes the other way around. Some things you're able to do, be a little more looser around brothers. Sometimes you're able to just say more, say certain things that around certain brothers that some may not understand at that point in time. All right, so you'll be mindful, very mindful of the perception that you're giving off, the aura that you're giving off to brothers, man. All right, 'cause it's very important how you perceive and how you're being perceived. All right, at the same time, we're all trying to get to the kingdom. All right, we're all trying to have the ministry blamed. We're not trying to put a stain or a blemish, not only upon our name, but upon the Lord's name. All right, so we say we judge righteous judgment. Okay, Proverbs 23 and 7. It said, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. And eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee." And I'm bringing out um, uh, the first part said, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." All right, so your actions are a direct reflection of your thoughts. Okay, so if we're thinking a certain way, how we think that we may be, uh, how the things that we may be doing, maybe thinking that it's okay, that we're not offending brothers, that you're walking around carelessly and recklessly and being being bold, I guess is the word, in our actions around brothers. They're gonna show out. They're gonna show out. You're gonna portray those actions that are in your head. So let's not think of ourselves uh, higher than what we're supposed to be. Okay, at the end of the day, it's about salvation. At the end of the day, it's about serving the Lord, spreading His truth. Okay, let's not get buffed up, and walk in a manner that can be perceived as being proud, being lording over brothers, or being taking advantage of brothers. All right, perception is something that you have no control of what other think. So put your good foot forward. Let brother think of you in a light manner, in a great manner. All right, and portray those things that cannot be um not discredited, but be contested. I guess be second guessed. That's the word. All right, it's not put off um image. All right, that can be interpreted, all right, as a brother being unruly, being backbiting or a whisper or a murmur. All right, and these things is something that could bite you in the tail. All right, the perception. Galatians. Um, I can't read my writing. 3. Let me see if it's 3. I don't think so. Yeah, I can read this. Alright, we're just gonna get past that. Let me see. Let's go with the water. I'm gonna get me another one. It says, this is a great one, the water album. This is Colossians 3:12. It says, put on therefore as the elect of the Most High, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering. See, this is what brothers are judging us upon. This is what the Lord has judged us upon. All right, are we walking accordingly? Are we being perceived to be men of the Lord? All right, and the men of the Lord are going to have attributes. Okay, we're going to have characteristics and qualities by becoming of service of Yahweh Shemi Shai. It said, forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If a man have a quarrel against any, even as Mashiach forgave you, so also do ye. And that's perfect, man. I might end it on there because, when you're when I'm talking to brothers, when I'm upset about my perception of things, all right, brothers may not be saying or doing things that I agree with, or doing things that I perceive to be off until we get rebuked, get corrected. All right, because that's what the brothers are here for, to reel you back in when you're going astray. All right, and it's good to talk about not forgiving a man such as yourself, roughly paraphrasing. All right, so when we are out there dealing with the body, dealing with the brotherhood, all right, and certain things may come up with brothers in the truth. A brother may fall or misstep, and you got to remember mercy. You got to remember mercy. You got to remember that it can happen to you. And so the Paul said, "What? Lest myself be a castaway." All right, so we got to allow it, because it says here in NLT, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. And that's the spirit that we got to be in. All right, that's the perception that we want to portray as a forgiving brother, as an understanding brother. All right, not being so uh, judgment all the time. It's the balance. Perception is something that's very critical in this truth. You don't want to be out and about and misrepresenting. All right, Yahweh me outside the body. So forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even the Messiah forgive you, so also do ye. Right? Because you got to reading in Thessalonians. All right, that if he's a Messiah, so are we. All right, so we have to show that same mercy. All right, that's been given to us. And above all things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. All right, so we got to put on charity, man. So above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony, man. All right, perception, man. And look at this. Look at this. Ministry. Get this. It says, man, the water album. I even have all these. 2 Corinthians 6:3. Giving no offense in anything, that the ministry be not blamed. And we don't know. Sometimes all the brothers are not going to always, at that point in the moment, say you offended them. They're not going to always voice their displeasure. All right. But we want to make sure we give the brothers no reason to complain, no reason to report you. Okay. That's why our actions, the way we move, the way we talk, the way we react to situations, especially when a brother, or older brother in position, the younger brothers are looking at us. They're holding on to our word. They're looking to us to be spiritual fathers, spiritual brothers, all right, leaders, all right, for them to walk accordingly. You know, the Paul said, "Walk after us." We have us as an example. You know, and you don't want to be perceived as a bad example. All right, in this truth. Okay, we don't want this ministry to be blamed. We don't want the Lord name to be blemished in any way. And one way to do that is to um, uh, uh, um, not to be perceived, all right, in a way that could be blamed, man. You know, so that's my 2 cents on perception, man. You know, and, for Walla Abba for this lesson because um, this is something that will it could uh, discourage brothers. All right, when we're perceived to be unbrotherly, when we're perceived to be um, uh, uncharitable, unforgiving. All right, burdensome. All right, not manning up. So with that, I want to say, call halal, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. The honor to the apostle and the elder of the great millstone. Until next time, Shalom and the Bible Ball.